free agency just opened, but we're going to talk about our favorite hip hop albums from before 2009.
But we'll save that for the UN Raps podcast.
They kind of remind me of the Scatabo. You know what I mean? The way they rap, don't they? Don't the Beastie Boys kind of rap like Cam Scatabo? If
You're right. You're right. I don't know. Scatabo is more like a Macklemore to me for some reason.
Yeah. Edelman's more like Eminem. You know what I mean? If you were a rapper, I think. Totally.
Who's Vanilla Ice?
Cooper Cup.
Sights and sounds and edges found. You will now get down with the Underground, the show that goes to the depths of the Dynasty landscape. That's right, it's Dynasty Underground in the building. And there's a lot of people actually going into new buildings for the 2025 NFL season, which is what we are going to talk about on this podcast after a crazy day in legal tampering and crazy week with some trade action. Here to break it all down with me tonight, of course, the wise man, Mr. Jax Falcone. How you doing tonight, fella?
Fantastic. Just here to talk about Zach Wilson.
Yeah, huge news coming
Big
out
news.
of Zach Wilson camp today. MILFs beware. And of course, on the other side, none other than Joe Kuvatakis, but affectionately known as Joe Quavius. How you doing, my man?
I just want to be clear. As soon as we're done with Zach Wilson, I would like to spend at least half an hour on Mac Hollins to the Pats.
Okay, 100%. We'll put that one on the list. Of course, we are posted up on the Undroppables YouTube channel. Make sure that you are subscribed if that's where you're watching at. But if you're listening, follow us on all your audio platforms. Leave a review, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Get us more in those algorithms. Really appreciate that. And of course, at the Undroppables on social media. Everything else can be found in that episode description there. And fellas, it has been a crazy day. I had a very busy day today at my 9 to 5, but I'm sitting there on meetings, trying to pay attention, trying to give input. My phone's buzzing. I got the group chats going off. I got the sleeper notifications happening. Twitter was down for a large part of the day today. So of course we are recording this on Monday night. How did it go for you guys, though? Were you guys able to stay in tune with it? Was it just as bananas for you? Joe, I know you got some busyness happening on the 9 to 5 front, but Jax, maybe you didn't work today. How was it for you kind of tracking what was going down?
Well, I did the undrafted early, and I had Derek Brown, Deebo, on the show. Really good stuff from Deebo as usual. And the two quarterbacks both happened. Sam Darnold and Justin Fields happened while we were doing the show. We did a lot of rookie talk because I need to hear, Mr. Deebo's input on the class, but we did hit some free agent stuff later in the show. But yeah, that news broke while we were on the show. I was giddy. It's so much fun. I love this shit.
Yeah, it is too much fun. And we're not going to waste any more time, guys. We're going to go back, take a little time capsule back to about Thursday, Friday of last week. I think is around Friday is when it was, because I had a little bit of a team video chat going on. And one of these pieces of news broke while we were on the video chat, which was absolutely electric. Shout out to Curdy and Dev who were on with me. But this isn't that piece of news. We're going to get there, Joe, because I want to prime you for that piece of news. It is related to you and your heartstrings. But this one we're going to talk about was the Deebo Samuel trade that happened to the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels gets a new toy in Deebo. Deebo gets out of San Francisco like was rumored. I personally think it seems like he's a very nice compliment to one Terry McLaurin. I think he probably does sink some of that Luke McCaffrey candle that we still had lit. But Joe, what are you feeling with this Deebo Samuel entry into the Commanders offense? And they did have another couple additions today, if you wanted to maybe chime in with those in relation.
I like that we went from D-Bro to Deebo. First of all, shout out D-Bro.
Yeah.
Met him at the expo. What a cool dude. I can't wait to listen to that podcast, Jax.
Unreal energy.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, and I'm just very aligned with him on so many things, so I can't wait to hear
I I I
what you guys have in store.
I mentioned how much of an awesome human being he was to his face on the air because it was that noticeable how awesome of a person he was, in real life, so to speak. Very, very generous and kind, and another chance to say it. So there it is. Sorry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. So as far as Debo is concerned, I think in the moment I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. If anybody can kind of manufacture touches for Debo, I think it's going to be in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. I think that he will benefit from that surrounding cast and on some of the short stuff and the horizontal raid that Cliff Kingsbury likes to run. But if you look at his metrics from last season, it gets really, really concerning. Uh, I was looking at perception before this. Shout out Matt Harmon too, another guy we met at the expo. Uh, 39.7 success rate, a 39.7% success rate versus man last year. That's an alarmingly terrible number. And then the more alarming thing, again, from reception perception, is his success rate against zone, which was always up in the high 80s, dropped down to 76% against zone. That's something I don't know, in the 30th percentile range. So that's really bad. So he's always been a unique player, manufactured touches, handoffs, things of that nature, and obviously very dangerous with the ball in his hands. So I'm sure Cliff's going to find a way to use this new toy, but the writing's kind of on the wall that the drop off has arrived, and the age cliff for a player like Debo might come a little bit earlier because of how much he's been featured as a runner and what an atypical wide receiver he's been. So I don't know. I've got my concerns, but they certainly needed somebody, and I think he's an upgrade over what they've got. That's my take. I'm kind of scared.
Yeah, I think you always have a little bit of fear going in with Deebo, especially if you're expecting him to be something on your roster, right? Like there came a time where we were expecting him to be a wide receiver one on rosters. Well, some folks weren't. I was not necessarily buying that myself. And then, what are we expecting him to be a wide receiver two? Is that going to be a little bit more spotty? I am more comfortable with him as the third wide receiver on a roster going in. So that's what I would say for Deebo there. But I do like kind of what you said about his ability to be in that Cliff offense. And if we look at Jaden Daniels, he hasn't quite had a mobile quarterback like that in San Francisco, other than maybe the cup of tea that Trey Lance had. But I think off schedule, Deebo is going to be really nice for Jaden Daniels. He's going to be short in those short areas where Jaden Daniels can see him when he's scrambling. And then what he can do after the catch in those situations where defenders are going to be looking for a guy to cover, maybe they don't have Deebo. I think there's going to be a lot of run after the catch situations for him. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to get back to that monster season that he had, but I think he could get back to that kind of wide receiver 2-3 relevance for us in fantasy. Although we might, like for Dynasty, I'd probably be ranking him in more of the wide receiver 3 range just for that kind of tread on the tires factor as well, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
Zach Ertz re-signed today for like $3 million, and they sent a haul to the Texans for Laramie Tunsil today as well, the Commanders. So some other news, interesting for Ben Sinnott with the Ertz signing, but we were always playing a long game with Benny the Sinner.
I think the Ertz cock block remains in full effect. It has been that way forever. I mean, wherever Ertz
7 years.
yeah, he's been cock blocking his whole career since Goddard. So, he's going to do it again. I mean, I'm not betting on Ben Sinnott. I also think that this is a great opportunity to sell Deebo. I don't know. I mean, he's going to have some spike moments. I don't know for how long that will be. His health is an issue. His weight was an issue. He was fighting through injuries, and then he was never a real wide receiver. He was never a nuanced player. He was always a bull in a china shop who was good enough as a wide receiver to justify his means. And then, of course, tremendous after the catch. His yards after the catch per play have gone down every single year over the last 4 to 5 years. So I think the writing's on the wall that Deebo is just a sinking ship. But in real football, sure. He's going to be a nice playmaker to add to, that offense where you really have to pay attention to them horizontally because of Jaden Daniels. Well, now you've got, Deebo Samuel to add to that mix. I think he's an effective weapon in that regard, but not in fantasy.
Yep. I dig it. Jax, we're going to stick with you, and we're going to go to Houston, who sent Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. They last week acquired Christian Kirk for a measly 7th-round pick, which, despite being a bit of a Christian Kirk hater, shout out to Wiz from the show that we were having last year. Him and I debated a little Christian Kirk, and I came out on top with the Brian Thomas Jr. take. 7th-round pick, you got to think there's going to be return on investment for them there with Tank Dell's injury, right, Jax?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a money trade, right? It's like, all these people seeing the picks going one way or the other. It's like, well, what did Cooper Kupp get traded for? You know what I mean? What did Davante Adams get traded for? Davante Adams got traded for nothing because they couldn't trade him anywhere. Nobody wanted to give him anything because of the contract. So ultimately, nobody's paying for the right to pay too much for a player. And Christian Kirk, that was just like, all right, fine, we'll give you the ceremonial 7th-round pick to get to pay him a little too much, maybe. But either way, I think it's a perfect spot for him, right? The interesting thing that we've been talking about all offseason is Ibuka to Houston at late first. Let's do it. Now it's like, well, that's off the not off the table, but if he lands there, it's like a little bit of a Zach Ertz situation with Christian Kirk. But I think as long as, because who else did they sign? Someone else? Am I forgetting? Or not yet, right? So it's just
they got what's his name from Miami?
Braxton Berrios.
Yes,
that's
okay.
right.
Well, that's not real. But I mean,
they signed someone else. He
brings his hard hat and lunch pail, boys.
He sure does. He sure does. He reminds me of Marshall Mathers, actually, a little bit. The way he plays.
More of a Rob Van Winkle, I'd say.
No, it's the way he plays. He's definitely like that. Lunch pail. He's going to do all the dirty work on the field. I'll tell you that much right now. Real good work ethic on that kid. But no, I think Kirk, fits perfectly into the slot, so that's a win right there. I mean, if you're holding Kirk, I think, he's still young enough. I would definitely be buying in at low cost. So yeah, give me Christian Kirk, certainly over Deebo, right?
Over Deebo? No.
I'm about the same on these guys, which is very lukewarm. Real quick, while you were talking, because I didn't even know about this Laramie Tunsil trade. That's how busy I was, and I was thinking to myself, has anybody ever been traded for more draft picks than Laramie Tunsil? So it was a 3rd and a 7th in 2025, and a 2nd and a 4th in 2026. He, of course, famously got traded to the Texans from the Dolphins for like 2 firsts or something like that because of the bong and gas mask thing on draft day.
Right? Should have shot him up the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy's already returned like 6 or 7 picks for his services. Incredible stuff.
Yes.
In terms of Kirk, I think it's a pretty good fit. Nick Caley comes over to the Texans from the Rams. So I got to imagine they're going to be running a very different offense and a lot of 11 personnel. So I'm kind of curious to see how Kirk's going to fit into that. I kind of think he's more like, latter day DeMarcus Robinson than anything else. So we'll see. And is that equal to or better than whatever Deebo's going to be? I don't know. I kind of put them both in somewhere in the late 30s, early 40s, I would guess.
Yeah, I just think that when you look at Christian Kirk, he's a target earner, as opposed to Deebo, who kind of has to have stuff a little bit more schemed for him. I think, I don't know, man. Kirk's going to be the sort of slot in Houston. That's just where he's going to be. You don't think so, Trav?
I think that's where he's best suited. I'm not sure if that's necessarily where he's going to be used. Nico Collins plays a lot of slot, and he is fucking awesome.
Well, Nico's the alpha, of course. I'm not taking that away, but I mean, he definitely wins down the field. I think, I was thinking that you were going to say they're going to bring in someone to play the slot like Ibuka and then put Kirk at the sort of the Z. But, obviously Nico is the X. I mean, he'll moonlight at the slot, but he's not the slot. There's going to be the guy who plays in 3 wide receiver sets in the slot is mostly going to be Kirk. I would think. And then I don't know what they're going to do on the outside. Maybe this opens them up for, a round 2, Trey Harris, Ayamanor, Beck, these types of players, Higgins. There's a bunch of those types of players that can sort of potentially go out there and do that. They missed their chance on Mac Hollins. I can tell you that much for sure.
Locked up, pal.
Quite the missed oppo. Yeah, the Patriots are really attacking the wide receiver position. Okay, Joe, we're going to talk about that heartstrings pick that we were mentioning earlier, and that is your Raiders sending a third-round pick last week to the Seattle Seahawks for one Geno Smith. I have to admit, I originally, Joe, when we were live on the video chat with the team, I was kind of not sure about spending that third-round pick on an old quarterback who doesn't necessarily put you towards the Super Bowl. Like, I'm closer to a Super Bowl than they were before, but I mean,
Yes.
they probably couldn't have been further away. Sorry. So I was kind of skeptical on the deal, but when I look at it for fantasy, I think, yeah, absolutely. Geno upholds everything. They could add another weapon. I'd still be fine with it. I love how this offense is shaping up, Joe. I am getting a little closer to thinking that they might pick Ashton Genty with that 6th overall pick. But what's your take on your team, the Raiders taking in Geno and everything that goes with it?
I gotta go Jim Mora here for Super Bowl. Super Bowl?
Okay, fair.
We can't make the playoffs, and you're talking about a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Dude, listen, all I want at this stage, this is how sad it's gotten, is just to be respectable, just to be in the hunt. If we can sneak into the playoffs, like, great.
Yeah, that's right.
A third round pick for a starting quarterback who's, in my opinion, very underrated was a good trade. Did I want Jackson Dart? Yes. Did I want I don't know, a franchise quarterback that's going to be here for the next decade plus? Yes. That's not happening now, but we could have done a lot worse than we have done so much worse
Yes.
than Geno Smith for so long. All right, I did a little bit of digging on Geno Smith. So last year, number 4 in yards. That doesn't matter as much because, he was mostly healthy, right? 14th in yards per attempt. This is for a minimum quarterbacks that played a minimum of 5 games. So middle of the pack in yards per attempt, but 8th in completion percentage, 6th in completion percentage over expected, 5th in adjusted completion percentage, which adjusts for like drops and penalties and yada yada. 9th in catchable throws. He was number 6 in dropbacks under pressure. So he was number 4 in yards while he was number 6 in dropbacks under pressure. And he was number 15 in fantasy points per game. On top of that, Warren Sharp had this great stat where, as far as his EPA per play, it was middle of the pack, but the reason it sucked is because Seattle had the highest run rate at 94% inside the 5-yard line, and the second highest run rate in the high 70s inside the 10-yard line. So he wasn't getting the touchdowns to help his EPA per play statistic. If they were just at somewhere around a normal rate, he would have easily been in the top 10, probably top 7. So the underlying metrics on this guy are that he's probably underrated. I'm excited about it. I think paying a third round pick for a middle of the pack starting caliber quarterback in the NFL is a great deal. There's no doubt about it. Our team got a lot better. We'll see what the new Chip Kelly, this iteration of the Chip Kelly offense in the NFL looks like. But no, I'm stoked because we have competency at the most important position in the game.
Yeah,
I like it.
outside the top tier of quarterbacks in this league, you're basically hoping for a guy like Geno Smith.
Yes.
It's a Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff. I know Goff sometimes gets elevated, but you know what I mean. Like, even Dak Prescott. Like these guys run an offense. They're you can get to a playoff game and win a playoff game with these types of quarterbacks. And I think
Yes.
Geno Smith is in that bucket. Where you want to put him and if you want to have the argument, that's fun. Maybe we could do it, but it's not really the point of the matter. Is like I even said it too about the weapons there. I think for Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers and whomever else goes there, this is good for them. Not great. It's not like, oh my God. But considering the options that were on the table, it's outstanding. They couldn't have done any better. There was nothing better that they could have pulled off. So I think from that lens, this is an absolute home run for them. It also doesn't tie them down to some sort of long-term onerous contract. They're going to be in a situation where they can just go out there and play for the short term. Pete Carroll's on a short term. Geno Smith is on that same short term. So they've got a short window. Let's see what they can put together. I think it's perfect. It doesn't preclude them from taking a quarterback in the draft, maybe not in the first round now, but maybe. I mean, we've seen Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins. I mean, I wouldn't predict that in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but it doesn't really preclude them from doing anything to solve their long-term issues at the quarterback position. And yet it gives them upside to win now. So I think threading that needle is about as good as they could have hoped.
Yeah, and one more thing on that, it's just looking at where the free agent quarterbacks have landed thus far, it's seeming less and less likely like that 3 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. I think that there's a pretty good chance Jackson Dart's there for the Raiders in the second, and I would
Yeah.
not be mad at that at all either. That's a lot of
Right.
capital dedicated to the quarterback position this year, but it's that important, and if he's there in the second, I'd be all about it and let him sit for a year or two and learn from a guy like Geno. So I'm happy about the deal, and it means we don't have to focus on that. We can focus on other things because there are a lot of other holes to fill on that team too. By the way, it was our later third round pick. We had 2. It was our later third round pick. We retained our early third round pick. So I'm pretty happy with the whole thing.
That's
And
nice.
all of this ties to the Sam Darnold decision because we kind of knew that, um, Seattle was looking at this like, hey, let's do a hard reset. We're going to sell DK Metcalf. We're going to sell Geno Smith. We're going to get some picks. And then we can just spend that money that we saved from that trade on Sam Darnold, who is in the same bucket that I just described, but he's younger. And we've got some picks to store to sort of help the infrastructure and rebuild around this. Kind of a little rebuild on the fly around another quarterback that doesn't preclude them from making any decisions. It's a 3-year, $100 million deal, which is really probably a 2-year deal. I'm sure that 3-year, third year is an easy out. I didn't read the fucking contract yet, but I'm pretty sure that's how those things go. You bet your life it is. Front loaded with guaranteed, which year 1, they're not going anywhere. Year 2, probably not going anywhere, but give them a 2-year window. Even if they do draft a quarterback, they can shift to that guy in year 1 or year 2. So I think it's great for Seattle as well. So yeah, I thought it was great for both teams and sort of how they had to put it together. Cause I didn't really think that Sam Darnold was the solution for you guys for sure. I just didn't feel that. So I thought Geno was
Yeah,
better for you guys.
my nightmare scenario was getting Sam Darnold. I'm
Yeah.
much more content with a Geno Smith signing, even if we're paying him a little bit more. I don't care. It's not my money. Salary cap just went up. No big deal. But Darnold, I knew
Geno's
was
better
going to
than
be a deal.
Sam, right?
I
I
think
mean,
so too.
yeah,
I think
it's
so
just
too.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as good for Seattle, but at least you can see their plan. You know what I mean? Because it's sort of a reset rebuild. Sam fits that a little bit better because, hey, we're playing with house money at that point.
Yeah. And
He's
I
like
think
8
Darnold,
years younger.
He is
yeah.
8 years younger. So if he
Eh,
does pan out, if he is more the smaller sample size of last year versus the larger sample size of his entire fucking career, then God bless you, you hit lightning. But I don't think he is. I think he's more the first part of his career than he is last year as a
Yeah,
player.
and I weirdly think though that Darnold is a better fit for the Clint Kubiak offense in Seattle as well, a better fit than Geno Smith. So I think that's why the Seahawks did it because Geno wasn't a great fit for that scheme, whereas Darnold very much could be. It's gonna be a lot of play action, it's gonna be a lot of running, and it's gonna be a lot of easy reads, and that's somewhere in the Shanahan tree, right? I think that makes sense.
Yeah. And interesting thing for Darnold there is that not going to have DK, still going to have Jackson Smith in Jigba, but it is not going to be the comfortable confines of that Vikings offense that he lived in last season. So I think we're going to see a bit of a come to earth situation for Sam Darnold, where I'm going to be shying away from him for fantasy, especially in startups too. I know the age, I know the contract is there for him to start for a couple of seasons, but try not to invest in Sam Darnold if you're in startups this offseason, guys. You can go elsewhere.
Agree.
Find a pick.
I do want to talk about this Jackson Smith and Jigba target funnel and
Please, yes.
the availability of downfield targets that are going to be there for him now.
Mm-hmm.
When DK was out last year, that's when JSN really broke out. He started off this season looking a lot like he did in his rookie season. And then when DK got hurt and he started going downfield and they realized that he could win downfield, that's when they started using him more in that way. And that's when how he finished the season so strong, because he proved that he's not just a short A dot slot guy, but actually can be used downfield. So funneling targets to him all over the field gets me very excited about the JSN scenario that's setting up here.
Yeah, I think he is going to soak them up. I don't think they're done at the wide receiver position. I think there's going to be some more wide receiver action coming in, but I think they're probably going to be predicated on the run anyway. So it'll be interesting to see who that is. And Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be an absolute magnet for the Rock.
Yeah. And I mean, they've got enough picks now where they can spend on wide receiver in the draft. I mean, that's obviously, wide open now.
And O-line, which was probably their biggest problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huge problem.
And what held Geno down, by the way, as well.
Yeah, and good luck, Sam. So staying in Seattle, but going from Seattle to
what a sell window! What a sell window for Sam Darnold, though, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Just a real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go right ahead.
Well, it extends his year-long tenure in Minnesota, which was essentially a sell window as well. But I think we were kind of hoping that he might be a long-term option there as well. But then the JJ McCarthy pick, and anyway.
Yeah.
Do you think people are buying Sam Darnold? I mean, I know he got a starting gig and a 3-year contract. But do you think people are buying this? It's not like he's walking into a great situation. I don't think anyone's going to look at the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett-less Seahawks with just JSN and be like, oh my God, Sam Darnold's going to smash. Like, I think we probably need to see it for a few games before you can maximize the value. Like, what would you pay for Sam Darnold right now? Or what would you sell him for?
Is it smart to sell him at 80 cents on the dollar, just knowing that he might only be 40 cents?
First of all, anything close to $1 you're taking.
Right.
What's $1 for Sam Darnold? I don't even know what that means.
I mean, my dollar is much different than yours, fellas.
a starting quarterback with a contract in the NFL in a super flex league is a first round pick in the future, right?
Yeah.
And so, minimum. I mean, if I could sell for a single future first, sure.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm gonna send some trade offers tonight. You're right.
Yeah.
So no longer sleepless in Seattle and moving down to Steel City is DK Metcalf. That was for a second round pick from the Steelers. Interesting move for the Steelers to be acquiring through the trade market a wide receiver as opposed to through the draft. And then Seattle shipping out DK, who, I mean, if you think about him and Jackson Smith and Jigba for the long term, is a perfect complement, especially if you're bringing in what you hope to be a long-term quarterback. But do your thing, Seattle. What do we think here? Because George Pickens is still there. There seems to be a bit of cannibalism to what both of these guys can do, but there's also some rumors that George Pickens might not be around and he might get shipped out at some point as well. So Joe, I see you making some eyes. I see a little smirk down there. Let me know what you're thinking about this DK Metcalf move.
All right, we'll talk about DK and Pickens first. I mean, I think there's a lot of redundancy between these two players. I think they're both dealing with a lot of contested catches. George Pickens is better at contested catches than DK is, but they're both going to be like, Pickens does not catch anything between 10 and 20 yards. It feels like it's all downfield or like a little bit like at the 8-yard line, right? And I think DK will probably have to occupy that space in order for him to make sense on this team. But, they're both kind of downfield guys. The reason I was smirking is because what does this mean? This means it's Roman Wilson's season in the slot.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
I'm pretty excited, guys.
Wow.
I'm pretty excited about these guys taking all the attention away from my boy, Roman Wilson, who will be back with the vengeance in year 2. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Well, I think doesn't this all come down to who's the quarterback, right? Like,
oh yeah, that might be important.
That look, of course, the Roman Wilson commentary needs to come first and foremost on this show, but I can't argue with that. But I mean, I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, or at least that's certainly
or
the
Russ.
odds on. Maybe
or Russ, him or Russ, right?
I would think. I mean, they're really down to only a few choices, and I brought this up on the pod with Deebo. nice little spot for Jackson Dart in the mid first
At
round. I can tell
21.
you that much for sure.
At 21.
Dude,
Woo!
downfield with these two motherfuckers and like
Yeah.
the Tomlin
And
sort of
Rodgers, behind
infrastructure.
Rodgers for a little while. Yeah.
Sure, go
Sure.
right ahead.
Yes.
Exactly. Bingo.
We'll take
I'm
that
in.
2-pick discount because he's going to have to sit for a season or two, like we'll take that. I love that. It's a nice spot. Like it's much more attractive for a quarterback now than it was before. And I think that double dip would be an amazing move. I'm not sure if they actually pull it off because that would be so sick, but I don't know, like one of those guys, if Russ or Aaron Rodgers are in there as starters, Joe, is that going to deter you from wanting these guys in your lineup?
I think that they're both, again, probably in like the 30s as far as wide receivers go. I think it moves Pickens down, and DK obviously needs to move down as well. But I probably have to give the slight edge to DK over Pickens. Um, with Rodgers, I think it'd be interesting. Doesn't it just feel like Rodgers and Arthur Smith would weirdly get along great?
Yeah,
Like, I don't
kind of
know. And
does.
that feels like the right, like,
Good
can't
grief.
Rodgers be a better version of Tannehill? Even like whatever he is, 42-year-old Rodgers, can't he just be a better version than, prime Ryan Tannehill and make this work in an Arthur Smith offense?
The thing about Rodgers is he's just so set on doing it his way, and I understand why. He's a, 40-year-old professional, which is basically, he's the sort of elite thing. Like I get it. He's got the deference, the veteran deference, the superstar deference, all that. I get that. But boy, oh boy, it's like you really should. I would just love to see him sort of modify his game to fit something else. I don't know. I just don't see anything with Rodgers working anymore. Although they do like to play slow, as you point out, and Rodgers likes that. I mean, good grief, it's could happen, but boy, oh boy, I think he's more dysfunctional than anything else.
I don't know.
I'd
I
be
kind of think
nervous.
it might work. I think it kind of might work. I'd be kind of interested in Rodgers on the Steelers. That would be the day Rodgers signs anywhere, you sell the shit out of him. You
Oh
sell him
yeah.
for whatever you can get. Whatever
Yeah.
you can get. Listen
Yep.
to me. It's
Yep.
time. Just
Oh yeah.
pray to God he gets signed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he will. I think he's going to go to the Steelers, and this actually does make a little bit more sense with Rodgers. Look, he can still spin it. There's no doubt about that. I would not. There's no negative there. But his mobility was certainly hampered. Maybe that's better this year. I know he's getting older, but like coming off the Achilles, I'm sure wasn't awesome for him. So who knows? We'll remain to be seen. But I would think that if Jackson Dart goes there, he would be starting sooner rather than later, and it might be in garbage time for the second half of a Steelers season that's been ruined by Aaron Rodgers.
I like
Just
that. We're
saying.
going to will that into existence. So speaking of Aaron Rodgers, we're going to move to his buddy who he won't be slinging the rock to this season. That gets afforded to one Matthew Stafford. Davante Adams signs a 2-year, $46 million deal with the Los Angeles Rams. And I think this is a nice fit with Sean McVay,
Damn right.
who has had fucking wide receiver funnel offenses forever and a day. Pretty sure like 5 out of the last 7 seasons, he's had a top 5 wide receiver scoring offense. So yeah, this looks awesome. And I think Davante Adams provides more versatility than Cooper Kupp brought. And him and Puka Nacua are going to make defensive coordinators absolutely crazy. Jax, why don't you step in on Davante Adams
Look,
here?
this is a real, this is a real match made in heaven. Because Matthew Stafford still can really play, and he is symbiotic with his coach. They are in concert. They are really seeing everything the same way. You bring a guy in like Davante, who's a real pro. I mean, he's been a moron in his personnel decisions, trying to fucking go to the Jets and all this. I mean, that was not very good for Mr. Davante Adams, but this was a great decision, in my opinion. This team was, a wintry wonderland play away from potentially being in the Super Bowl. I mean, this was a really good team. So Matt Stafford's still in his prime. I mean, late prime, but I mean, he can still play, man. And so as long as that's the case, Puka. By the way, I've probably if you're saying Puka Nacua was like a top 5 best ball or redraft pick, he's a top 10 pick now. I don't want to give him too much of a demerit for this
So,
Davante Adams situation at all.
So for this question, I went into my best ball rankings because that's the closest thing I have to season-long rankings
Right.
at this point. I will be dropping them actually on the True North Substack for anybody who wants to find those in the next few weeks. Davante Adams did move up, and he is the wide receiver 12 for me in best ball this season. Puka Nacua went from wide receiver 2 only to wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
So it was not a dip for Puka very much at all because there's going to be a lot of pie for these guys, and
Yeah.
it's going to be all over their face.
And in best ball, even better because it maybe, there's ups and downs. This was a Devontae week, this was a, Puka week, but they're going to have huge weeks. And like you say, a lot of pie all over their face.
My thinking on this is what Adams helps the Rams do is move like him and Puka, I feel like can be interchangeable in terms of playing outside and playing inside, and both with the ability to
Mhm.
play X, Z, or slot. I think Cooper Cup was like a like slot flanker, right?
Mhm.
Adams and Puka are everything.
Yeah.
So that gives them the ability to do a lot of different things, and it's going to give Stafford a lot more options. Real quick, I dove into reception perception again for Devonta Adams in the 2024 season. So he's still got a 74.6 success rate versus man, according to Matt Harmon, that's a good number. Against zone in 2024, he had a big drop off from 84% to 77%. And what Matt pointed out was, usually when you see these drop offs in success rate versus zone, that has to do with like a little bit of a loss of explosiveness. But what he pointed out and what my observation was, being that he was on the Raiders for part of last season and on the Jets, is his superpower has always been his get off against
Mhm.
press, against man. Just the way his package of moves off the line of scrimmage is still elite, and so I think he's going to continue to be successful in that way, which is what will make him a really successful slot receiver and give the Rams the flexibility to play him anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm excited about it. I do think it's an upgrade, which is sad to say because I love me some Cooper Cup and always
I
will.
know. I know. Same here. Same here. So we are going to stay with a former Green Bay Packer. Probably don't need to spend too much more time on this one, boys. Aaron Jones re-signing with the Minnesota Vikings. I think somebody in the Discord mentioned that it's going to be Aaron Jones splitting time with a second round rookie running back. I think something like that, maybe not second round, could definitely be in play as they try to retool with JJ McCarthy, presumably coming into that starting job. Any candle reignited for Aaron Jones, or just try to sell him for kind of that third plus if you can?
No, I think, yeah, man. Look, this is another one of those situations, and I would put this one with the Najee Harris to the Chargers. With these two guys just took a premium landing spot and kind of shit in the punch, if you will, right? They just sort of pooped in the punch because if you saw Omari and Hampton land in either one of these spots, thank you so much. Who pooped in the pool? It's like Caddyshack.
More
But
of an upper decker, if anything, but sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I think Aaron Jones would be more susceptible to getting a large piece of his job taken than would Najee in Los
interesting.
Angeles. I think Najee would more preclude the Chargers from drafting somebody that high than Aaron Jones does the Chargers from drafting, or the Vikings
But
from
the
drafting.
the idea that whomever, if it was Bashal Tootin in the fourth going to the Chargers before, we were going to be like, oh my God, lose your mind. Now that spot's like a little bit more
Yeah,
murky, is all I'm saying, right? So
totally.
the spot becomes more murky because of the veteran deference, because it's Harbaugh and the Najee Harris guy. He's going to get touches. He's a fucking alpha, man. He's a first round draft pick in the NFL. If he's at all good, he'll be playing a lot more than whichever rookie. Just by, even if it's irrational, the same way that was with Warren and him in Pittsburgh, I think you're going to see something like that. And then Aaron Jones, I mean, he's just still, I mean, he was really awesome last year. He has a hard time staying healthy, so I think the door will open for anybody. But still, again, it makes that landing spot a little bit more murky. I think both players are still going to have some some production, maybe like a Joe Mixon type of a situation where we thought, he might have been done, and then he revises himself in Houston. So these are the types of things that I think it's just funny because we're so excited for those two landing spots, and they just kind of like, all right. And Javonte Williams on a very lesser degree to Dallas makes that landing spot just on a much smaller degree a little bit more murky there, but much less.
Who the hell are we talking about right now? I thought we were talking about Aaron Jones. Now we're talking about Javonte. Now we're talking about Najee. And I just say
Jack's Falcone football, baby.
Yeah, I know. Wait. Did Najee actually sign with the Chargers?
Yeah, he did actually.
Oh, that got done.
He did.
That got done.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
all
so.
right.
Yeah.
My take is this. Najee is stepping into the Gus Edwards role on that offense. Gus Edwards was not who he used to be anymore by the time he came over to the Chargers, and I think they wanted the banger, and they got Najee Harris to play that role, if you will.
Sure.
Najee is the Javonte Williams of Gus Edwards's, right?
Okay. I feel like Javonte might be a little misplaced inside that, but I do see the Najee Gus Edwards.
There is a guy there, but it's not Javonte. You were just reaching.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, the names I heard most recently. But anyway,
Audric Estime is the one fat guy to the other fat guy. I don't know. I can't remember.
But Najee signs for $9 million according to what I see here, right?
That's
so I mean, obviously, whatever, 9.25. Okay, well, is that who knows what that is, right? But certainly more than Javonte.
2 years.
1 year, $9 million.
1 year.
Whoa.
Yeah,
all right.
200. That's like 200 plus carries is what that tells me. I'm actually kind of excited about that signing in that Harbaugh offense for Najee. He showed flashes with Pittsburgh. It was always a shite offense to be in. The offense just doesn't breed efficiency. And 2 seasons ago, he had that mysterious, like, highest breakaway run percentage in the league or something like that. And then obviously that came back down to earth last year. But he's going to give you 1,000 yards. He's going to give you 200 plus carries. He's got a shot at 10 touchdowns in that offense. So I'm kind of excited about Najee because I think there might still be a little stink on him where there's a bit of a discount on what he produces.
Yeah, I agree. I still haven't given an Aaron Jones take though, which is this is the best. This is the best outcome possible for Aaron Jones, even if they bring somebody else in. Right. Last year was Cam Akers or, Ty Chandler or whatever, whoever the RB2 was, they're going to bring somebody else in and hopefully they'll be effective. And hopefully Aaron Jones won't be used as much because he is more effective when he's not. We saw him break down by late November, early December. So I don't think you want that. It's fun while it lasts, but he's going to break. So even though he played 17 games, his effectiveness went way down late in the year, and I think he needs a running mate. So I think this is good for Aaron Jones.
Yeah. So why don't you give us your Javonte take too, Joe, and then we'll move off these running backs.
This is also what I wrote in my notes here is best outcome possible. Like the great irony here. The great irony here is that the Cowboys overspent on running back for years during the running backs don't matter era.
Right.
And now that running backs matter again, they are not spending on running backs and they're bringing in a bunch of, guys off the street that replacement level running backs. Right. So they have gotten this position wrong now for 8 years. They've been doing it wrong for 8 years. Right now is when they should be spending and they should be drafting a running back, but I have no idea what they're going to do. I think they're just literally 3 or 4 years behind where the NFL should be.
You could just see Jerry Jones's personal assistant walked into his office on Sunday night and was shaking him, being like, I think free agency started or something. And he's like, what? You know what I mean? That's kind of how this all went down. He's like, whoa, what? And he's like,
let's get the guy we should have got last year.
Our fan base has been calling for a big running back signing. Let's do it.
Call Emmitt Smith. Ask him what we should do. I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah, exactly. No, they're certainly behind the 8 ball for sure. But Javonte is so broken and probably not good anymore, which is sad because he was really good coming out. But I mean, if he's healthy or something, he could be good. But I'm not holding out any hope. But it's like you say, it's the best case scenario. Right. That's right. That's correct. That's the right take.
And so now we're going to go down to Tampa and we're going to talk about Chris Godwin signing back with the Bucks. 3 years, 66 mil. I'm still holding out hope for Jalen McMillan because I
Yep.
think we know that Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are both going to be big producers in this offense. That was my biggest takeaway. And I put out a tweet that says, bye, Jalen McMillan. Anybody
You can
have a
probably buy
different
him cheap.
takeaway from this one? Yeah, you are
Yep.
real cheap right now. A guy
Yep.
coming off 8 touchdowns, who I think can do some of what Chris Godwin does in that offense. Joe, did you have a similar takeaway, or what was your big takeaway from this one?
My literal first note was bummer for Jalen McMillan.
Right. Yep.
That's the first thing, us dynasty people, that's the first thing we think of is this guy that we absolutely at the undroppables hit on,
Yeah.
that we were screaming from the rooftops to draft. That basically came in. It took him a little while to get going, but he kind of checked every box down the stretch, and we just freaking hit a home run on Jalen McMillan. Now it's like, oh wait, was that a double? It might be a double now. So
Yeah.
it's a bummer from that standpoint. I'm happy for Godwin. Apparently, he left like $20 million on the table to basically stay with the Bucks and not go elsewhere. And it's a bummer for fantasy players just because had he gone to a landing spot where there wasn't a lot of wide receiver competition, he might have had one of the better seasons of his career. I've always been a Chris Godwin truther, and I really love
Same.
him as a player. So we left a lot of fantasy points on the table too. So from that standpoint, it sucks. These things tend to work themselves out with good players, and I still believe in McMillan. I think he's a buy, and I think Chris Godwin is probably, I don't know what to do with Chris Godwin at this point. I've got a team where I've got both of them, and I'm kind of pissed.
Isn't like Jalen McMillan sort of the Chris Godwin handcuff though? I mean, I
A
know
little,
that's
yeah,
kind of
100. That's what he was last year, right?
kind
That's
of
why he
ridiculous,
had
but
that
it's
surge.
yeah. I mean, it really is. And who says that Godwin coming off a pretty ugly injury? I don't even know what the. I'm not a fuck. Just saying, I'm not a doctor, guys.
What?
Yeah, I just
Why
don't.
were you
I don't.
giving me all
Dr.
that advice
Boulanger.
last week, dude?
I mean, that was
Dude, I
personal
did that
experience
shit.
advice. Don't
I did
mention
that.
anything. Yeah, it works. That stuff
Okay, I
works.
got
Don't mention.
it. Okay.
But like,
Is this the ointment thing?
it was the ointment.
Yeah. Fucking Kyle Pitts again.
Yeah, the Kyle Pitts ointment. There's a salve for that. Yeah, that's right. You you jacks it on, you jacks it off.
Correct. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
what you
it's a Miyagi style. You do the
do.
yeah. Anyway, back to what were we talking about? Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans tends to get hurt a lot too. I'm not wishing any of this, but he's, nicked up here and there. So, between the two of them getting older, I think there's generally 3 wide receiver sets in the NFL. I think he'll get on the field. He is the absolute number 3 where we thought he could have snuck himself into that Godwin role, which would have been super, super spicy. But yeah, you got to wait at least a year or probably more. I don't know now. Yeah, it's definitely a bummer for sure for Jalen McMillan. I think you'll have time to buy him even lower at some point, Trav. So, there still might be people waiting for that, to set in. It's kind of going to be pain for a while for McMillan, likely.
Yeah, he's on most of my teams anyway, so I probably don't have many other teams to buy him on.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, love that dude. So Joe, talk to me. This one does not have a player that is going to be on our fantasy rosters necessarily, but the Bears have gone to town on their offensive line, and I just wanted to make sure I take note of that because of what that can do for some of these weapons. So they picked up Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, and then Drew Dahlman, who I believe was the Falcons' old center. He got a fat stack. I think that's just more good signs for them to have a surge in this offense. And I'm not trying to stamp my Caleb Williams take from earlier this offseason or anything like that, but I really do think that this is all just boding well for a big second season for him where, if you did buy coming off that first season, you're going to be laughing. But I think that the price might be going back up a little bit, seeing what they're doing with Ben Johnson in there. Hey.
All right, here's my firmest take so far of the show. Right now, off of this news, you need to sell DeAndre Swift. The Bears, I should say, Ben Johnson already traded, he was already part of the regime that traded away DeAndre Swift once. I think they're going to take a running back, and I think whoever the running back is that they draft is going to be an awesome pick. right now that's still in question. So get rid of DeAndre Swift now off of this news. Obviously, it's good for Caleb, good for DJ Moore, good for Roma Dunze. I think we like this because this was one of the most dysfunctional parts of their team. But I don't think you're necessarily buying or selling any of those guys. You're kind of just holding. But sell DeAndre Swift on this news, and because I think they're going to make a running back change.
Yeah, I will say no more excuses for Caleb. That's the one thing I'll say.
Oh yeah,
this is a no more excuses, bro. Like,
yep.
If there's a pressure to sack rate issue here and a time to throw issue here and a pressure rate issue here and a sack rate issue here, guess whose that is? That there is Caleb's. That's Caleb's issue. So they need to figure that out, and that comes from the offensive coordinator and Caleb. They need to figure this out, and they need to do it now. And if they do draft a running back, whether it's Genty early or someone else a little
Caleb
later,
and Caleb backfield,
be kind of cool. But whatever they do, it's no more excuses. And I do think that the screaming buy has been Roma Dunze. I've had some people try to pry him away from a couple of my rosters smartly, I think, and I have resisted all comers for Roma Dunze on any roster that I'm holding him on. I don't have a ton of Roma Dunze, but every single roster I have Roma Dunze on, he has been propositioned. There's other pimps trying to get to that.
Do you think anybody's dumb enough to sell Roma Dunze or DJ Moore? Really? I don't know. Yes. I have not done it. I've gotten the same propositions, and it's like, no, that's not happening. So I guess you're right. I think they're obviously a hold because their values are down. So you're not going to sell them because they can be so much better. But
buy or hold.
What that means is they're a buy.
They're a buy.
If you can get them, you should throw offers out. So that's a good point. And I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint because I find the offers offensive.
Right.
Same.
Right. I mean,
100%. Yeah. I'm going to have Rome probably in my top 20 wide receivers. Might even have him over DJ Moore, which could be a little spicy.
That's spicy. You got to see it first.
I know what we kind of did with Keenan Allen last year. But anyway, we're going to go to some Canadian content here, boys. My boy, Josh Palmer, signs with the Bills, 3 years, 36 milli for old JP. Shout out to the Canadian kid for getting the bag. Goes to the Buffalo Bills, which is close to Ontario, which is nice for him, probably close to home. I think that's where he's from. I love to see it. On one of the highest powered offenses in the NFL, is Josh Palmer going to be viable for us in 2025, Jax?
This is a weird one for me. I was wondering what this meant, right? Like,
I know what it means.
Right? It means that Keon Coleman isn't good. Doesn't it mean that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it means. Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yes.
It means
we will take the jaggiest jag there is at the wide receiver position. Yes.
Taking the W.
I'm sorry.
Whoa. No, it's
best
true.
Canadian receiver there is.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
Oh, wait,
I want to do some research.
Alec Manor might be better.
I don't know. I want to do some research.
I don't know.
But
Nikhil Harry's not.
No. You feel me though? Like,
it does.
Right?
Mean
like
he sucks. So
Khalil
does
Shakir.
Khalil
Shakir is wide
going.
receiver one there. He's wide receiver one there. Josh Palmer is not really wide receiver 2, but neither is Keon Coleman, is kind of my point. Because if they love Keon Coleman, they don't really need to do this. I mean, I don't know. That's a weird one. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Is he the Mac Hollins or the Amari Cooper?
He's the Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
Which is better. That's better for Josh Palmer. That's for sure.
He's the Amari Cooper.
It's weird. It's almost like they're going to you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like Super Bowl era Patriots teams, Jax, where they didn't have a stud wide receiver. They just had a bunch of useful dudes. And so I wonder if maybe they're trying to put something like that together. Like Khalil Shakir is no alpha wide receiver. Right. He's not your typical number 1 wide receiver on a team. I still would not love for him to be even like the wide receiver 2 on my fantasy roster, despite being attached to Josh Allen. But he is a dog, and he is a guy who's going to be reliable for you. And so I wonder if they're going to be trying to kind of patch something like that together for the wide receiver.
It's a spread it around offense, right? It's a spread it around offense. Yep.
Yeah, they thought they might have had some electricity with Curtis Samuel coming in there. That maybe they thought they had that with Amari Cooper. Maybe they're just kind of giving up on that now and deciding they're going to piece it together, which I think could be fine and allow Josh Allen to
Yep.
be the star. So I think Josh Palmer is going to spike here and there. I think what he is to me is just a late add to your best ball stacks. I know I'm kind of bringing in a bunch of best ball takes here. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
slowly starting to do some drafts and stuff like that. But that's where I'm the most interested in him because I am not interested in having to make the decision as to whether I
Right.
want to put Josh Palmer into a starting flex spot on my
I,
roster.
I think when we do our projections for this team, it's going to be a bunch of players, Kincaid included, between 15 and 20% target share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to be 25, 30. No, that doesn't exist here. It's just a
No.
bunch of guys who get 70 targets, 80 targets, 90 targets, just a bunch of guys who do that. Shakir probably leading the team in targets.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's aside from if they do something Matthew Goldenish in the draft, which is that's what I was kind of wondering. Like I thought they were kind of maybe looking at like something like that in the draft, which would have definitely killed Keon. If they do that anyhow in the draft, then you can literally bury Keon Coleman. But I think, Keon even is going to see probably 14, 15% target share in this, spread it out offense where Josh Allen's a superstar and still James Cook. Awesome. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the story of the day.
Mm-hmm. Joe, Justin Fields signed a 2-year deal with the New York Jets. Interesting. I don't see it necessarily going very well, but I think
No.
Justin Fields on the field is going to give us some fantasy points. And so I have some shares that I might get some starts out of, and I'm definitely going to be looking to sell.
Yeah.
But what say you, Joe, on the Justin Fields insertion to the Jets offense?
This is your chance. If you've been sitting on Justin Fields shares, if you have refused to trade away Justin Fields, don't think that it's all working out and finally coming together for you. It is not. You trade him right now. Here are some, and what I immediately just started thinking of, like, second order effects of what happens with Justin Fields on the Jets, because I'm like, sell Justin Fields and this is not going to ultimately go well. I just dove into his stats, but my first note is Brees Hall season, right? Question mark again, because there's the as our friend Matt Kelly says, the Alfred Morris corollary here,
Yes.
right? With
The
just
running
a
quarterback. Yeah.
running quarterback that is going to help open running lanes for the star running back. I think that's great. But then the other thing, this was great, digging into the advanced stats, quarterbacks, minimum 5 games played again. Justin Fields ranked number 2 in checkdowns.
Mm,
I didn't really expect that because you don't typically see that from running quarterbacks. And
no.
maybe that was a function of the Arthur Smith offense, but that could bode really well for Brees Hall. He was number 5 in fantasy points per drop back. So that is the bull case, but he was number 34 in fantasy points per game. So that is the bear case. It's a weird player. It's a weird player where he's
Yeah.
going to be pretty good for fantasy, and you just need to sell the fact that, like, hey, he's going to run. He's got a starting job. He's got a commitment from the Jets. He's got Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, and this is going to be great. Give me a first for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
love him too. I
That's
love him.
exactly the take. This is awful for Justin Fields. I mean, he does get 2-year $40 million, which is basically probably, again, just like we always know, a 1-year deal where they can get out in year 2. Most of it, not guaranteed into year 2, I'm sure. That all being said, also it's a shitty situation with a dysfunctional organization where everybody wants out. Garrett Wilson's unhappy. I'm sure he's not necessarily thrilled about this. This is a bad situation. It would be kind of awesome if somehow Justin Fields makes this a winning situation. And of course, Aaron Rodgers couldn't, even with all those little binkies. So, that'd be the only good thing about it. But as a Patriots fan, let me just tell you, I'm not like, oh no, that's not how not how I feel about that signing. So I can tell you that that's probably not good for fantasy too.
Okay, Jax, we're going to stay with you on this one because I know you
Whew.
absolutely hate this next player. The Cincinnati Bengals re-signed one Mike Gesicki,
Yeah.
getting a satchel, didn't he?
Yeah.
They also brought back Samaje Perine, but Mike Gesicki is back in our hearts, right, Jax?
Unbelievable. He's the zombie. You throw him over the cliff, he just comes back up. It's unbelievable. It really is, because he's never really been able to do anything. This is the funniest guy in the league for sure. Yeah, good for Mike Gesicki. I mean,
I still got him in some spots.
how dare Cincinnati not consider Evan Ingram for similar money when he's been released? Imagine Evan Ingram in that offense.
That'd be
Oh my
sick.
God. No, let's just keep. I mean, Gesicki's fine as a slot wide receiver. We know that, but I mean, come on, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, hilarious. Joe Quavius, the Chiefs re-signed Hollywood Brown almost minutes after the news broke of Xavier Worthy maybe
Yes.
like allegedly choking a family member or something like that, restricting the breathing or something, I think it said.
I
Not
should not be
choking, just
laughing.
restrict. Hey, it was that triangle choke I think you were talking about earlier.
That's right. On the duck. Yeah, so I think but it seems like that's going to be kind of a nothing situation for Xavier Worthy from what I've heard. So we're going to be in the Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice pending suspension thing in 2023.
Hollywood
Yes.
Brown getting that Tutu Atwell money though, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I mean, you gotta
So
be kidding. Go ahead, Joe Quavius.
is it going to be a bit of a shit show in that wide receiver room again?
On the Chiefs? I don't believe
Yeah.
it. No. Yeah, I mean, we've got at least one pending suspension on that team in the wide receiver room with Rashee Rice. That's probably happening. I don't think this Xavier Worthy thing is over yet. They didn't press charges yet. They decided not to press charges, but I don't know. I don't think it's over yet. These things, like, they always kind of play them down and then they come back. So it probably makes sense. They needed him. He really helped down the stretch. They were kind of a different offense and a different team when he got onto the field finally in week 17 or 18 or whenever that was, and through the playoffs until the Super Bowl, where he was an absolute ghost. But no, it's a common sense signing, and it makes sense because he did a bet on himself signing last offseason. Obviously got hurt in the preseason and didn't do a whole lot. So he's just got to do it again, right? That's what it comes down to. And he knows the system, and they know that he can function in that offense. So probably a pretty good scenario for him. And I think he's going to, as long as he's healthy, play a lot more this year.
Yeah. And I think getting that Tutu Atwell money was a joke, but also kind of a point made that I think it's still Rashee and Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood is kind of their Tutu Atwell. I mean, I'm just telling you, he's not going to be a significant target earner if both guys are on the field and healthy.
Yeah.
He's not. Only if one of them is gone, then of course he'll be able to be a playable asset. But I don't think it's anything. It's virtually a nothing burger if everybody's healthy.
Earlier we talked about the latter day Demarcus Robinson. Hollywood is now like the prime Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah. I don't know. I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I think there's still a little bit left in the tank, and I think Hollywood. Well, I know Hollywood was hyper efficient on an extra small sample down the stretch, so I'm just kind of curious to see a full season of them together, because I think Andy Reid could cook some fun shit up.
You know who else?
Yeah, Spotty. They signed Samaje Perine.
No.
Who else?
They signed Elijah Mitchell.
Oh, Elijah Mitchell. That's right. Perine was back with the Bengals. We went Bengals into Chiefs. Sorry, boys. Yeah,
that's okay. It's
Elijah Mitchell's nice confusing. There. He's nice there.
It's a little bit of a shot there.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's healthy, he's good.
Shot.
He's not healthy, obviously, he's nothing. But
well, that's it. You might get 8 games out of him, but those 8 games are going to be dope.
We'll see. Might be
he's
a guy.
It's kind of like the new Jerick McKinnon, right? Maybe not as good of a pass catcher, but 49ers cast off going to the Chiefs. It's probably a good scenario for him. They're probably drafting a running back. I can't imagine they're not. Yeah.
Okay, boys. So I think that's kind of a wrap here. We just got a couple of shit bags left on here. Actually, not necessarily a shit bag. I love De'Ami Brown. Signed a 1-year, $10 million with the Jags. Kenny Pickett got traded from the Eagles to the Browns for Dorian Thompson-Robinson in a 5th. And then Darius Slayton, who I actually love, but do not recommend having him on your dynasty rosters. 3 years and $36 million with the Giants. Slayton went back for. So I love him, but I
Getting that
still
Trey
think,
Palmer money.
yeah, no shit. But I don't think
De'Ami Brown
so.
becoming what he always has been, Trav,
What's that?
a Jag.
That was well done.
That
Well
hurts, man.
done.
That
I
hurts,
know
bro.
it hurts Trav especially. I'm sorry.
I didn't
I'm
know
sorry.
that you were gonna just do that to me at the end of the show, dude. Wow.
That was good. Well done.
Okay, with that, yeah. I'm gonna ride this out with a lot of energy now, aren't I, Joe? Yeah. Thanks a lot, bud. Hope you guys all have a good fucking night.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else, is there?
That's all I saw today. And so just keep in
Yeah.
mind, anybody, that this was recorded on Monday night, so there probably will be some other news happening. Never know, maybe we get so excited that we do an off schedule if some crazy shit happened, but never know what the week will throw us on the real life front as well. So TBD. If not, you can talk to us in that Discord. Please check out the Patreon as well. Those tiers have been revamped, and there's going to be some real nice rankings coming from the three folks that you are listening to right now. So super excited to bring that to the people. Follow us on socials, subscribe to that YouTube channel is the best way. Getting lots of comments on the episodes, which has been really fun. So make sure you're dropping a comment, letting us know what you think. Tell us where we went wrong. Tell us where we went right. We love to hear it.
Make fun of us.
But yeah, absolutely. Any other parting shots for the people, fellas?
No, make fun of us. It's fun. We're having
Right,
a lot
yeah.
of fun. So
It's hilarious.
definitely make fun of us. We're
We can
primed
take
for
it.
it. Yeah.
We can take it for sure. Yeah. So for Jax Falcone, for Joe Quavius Kubitakis, I am Trav. Make sure you subscribe. See you next week. Peace.